Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Steelers Depot live stream here on this Monday, April 18th. I am Alex Kozora, and as always, joined by Dave Bryan, our final Q&A live stream before the 2022 NFL Draft. And we'll see, Dave, if we pulled better ratings than the Maulers on TV right now. I see Kirby Wilson giving a fiery pep talk about why you should choose chicken salad over pizza. At least I assume that's what he's saying right now. That story's gaining a lot of traction. That was the closed captioning, yeah. Good deal. All right, Dave. So as you guys know the drill by now, you guys can ask us questions for the next hour, and we will answer them. Let me actually pull up the live chat here, and just let me know if you can hear Dave as well. There are some occasional glitches with OBS. I want to make sure that's all good. So if you heard Dave there, just let me know, and if so, we. All right. Sorry. Let me try to fix it. Try now, Dave.
Testing 111. Do you hear me now?
Do you guys hear Dave? Hopefully. If you don't, then that could be an issue, but it should be good now. So just let me know, and then we can proceed. Mutated genome says good to go. Yes. Okay. Sorry
All right,
about
good
that.
deal.
You were making a very funny observation about chicken and pizza before, just for
Yeah,
the
not
record.
funny at all. Not that funny. Not
Well,
funny where we have to waste the people's time with it again.
what's that? Goodfellas, haha funny or clown funny or
Right, right.
making a
I,
joke.
I
Yes.
I I amuse you like a clown. Right.
There you go. So again, ask your questions. We'll be here for the next hour. If you want to be guaranteed for your question to be asked and answered by Dave and myself, you can send us a super chat, and that will move you to the front of the question line as well. As a reminder, this upcoming Sunday, the 24th, Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, I will be doing a mock draft with Walk the Mock as one of the 32 real life GMs picking for the Pittsburgh Steelers, a 4 round mock draft with trades included. So I'll be live streaming that on this channel, and you guys can come hang out with us and hope help me make picks for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So just wanted to mention that. We'll get into the questions here, starting with our good friend Mutated Genome. Good to hear from you. Says hello, Dave and Alex. Have you watched any of Trubisky's NFL tape? If so, do all of the top quarterbacks in this year's draft have a higher ceiling than his? That's a tough question to answer when you're basing some NFL tape and resume off of just a college resume. I don't find Trubisky's ceiling terribly high. It's best case scenario in Pittsburgh. It's serviceable starter for 1 to 2 years, and so generally, I would say the upside of the Willis and Corral, even Howell, are higher than that. But that is a tough one to try to compare 1 to 1.
Yeah, look, I mean, you don't know until these guys get in the NFL. You can try to look at these traits the best you can and try to project. I do think that the three that you mentioned there, obviously being Willis, Corral, and Howe, of all the ones in this year's draft, have the highest uh, area or the most room to potentially grow. Obviously, you would think a guy with Willis, you can envision his ceiling possibly, and I use that word carefully, possibly being the highest of the bunch there. But it's going to take 2 or 3 seasons into their rookie seasons before you got a pretty good understanding what each could do. And I think overall, I think you got a pretty good feeling of what Mitch Trubisky is and isn't right now. And look, the only way the Steelers are going to win games, I think, when Mitch Trubisky in 2022 is make his job easier. And by that, they're going to have a much better running game this year. They're going to have to be able to rely on some more play action. They're going to have to rely on Trubisky pushing the football down the field more so or with success, and then they're going to have great defense. I mean, there's no two ways around it. The Steelers' defense, overall defense, both run and pass defense, is going to be the biggest determiner on whether or not this team wins the AFC North.
Hmm.
So, can they win games with Mitch Trubisky? Absolutely, they can. But is he the kind of guy that I think people are going to be talking about in the next 2 years as being a top 12, 13 quarterback in the NFL? Personally, I don't think so based on what I've seen of his Chicago Bears tape.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment overall. I think you make it a really astute point about the importance of this defense. They're going to be the ones driving this team this year, regardless of what the team does or does not do quarterback wise in the first round. Trubisky's still going to be your starter, and this defense is going to have to find ways to, you know, win field position, take the ball away, keep the score down, play great situational football, third down red zone. That's true for any team, but especially just the overall makeup. The way the Chiefs can play defense and get away with things is much different than the way Pittsburgh can afford to play defense. Do want to mention here, I'll get back to the questions here in a moment, but I just want to talk about some of the news today about Diontae Johnson, reportedly quoting the 93.7 The Fan. He was not there for the first day of voluntary team workouts. Johnson, as you guys see on screen right now, appears to be subtweeting in response to that, saying things like, don't believe everything you see. If they don't have a story, they're going to make one. So, wanted to kind of quickly take your temperature on that. I'm sure a lot of Steeler fans have seen those stories and those comments today. To me, this is use a political term, a nothing burger, but what's your take on it?
First of all, do you have a list for me of all the players under contract who are not in attendance today? That would be a great place to start. And obviously, I'm being funny there because there's no way Alex can provide that, and the team's definitely not going to provide that either. Another thing is they call this voluntary offseason program for a reason. If the guy feels more comfortable, now, yeah, in a perfect world, would you like everybody under contract to be in the building working together to build the quote unquote team unity and all that hoopla that goes along with that? Absolutely, you would. But come get me when he misses a mandatory minicamp session. And the OTA sessions are obviously before that. And with a new quarterback in Mitch Trubisky, obviously you would hope that a guy like Diontae Johnson would be present for the OTA sessions that start in May. But I mean, look, this is basically them doing a lot of lifting and some meetings and along those lines. And if Diontae Johnson feels that he can get maybe better or equivalent work somewhere else at this portion of the off season, have at it. Now, how will he miss all of these voluntary sessions leading up to OTAs? I don't know. Who else is missing? And the reason this is such a being made such a big story, I'm sure, is the fact that Diontae Johnson is in a contract year. Obviously, there's a lot of speculation about whether he will or he won't get a contract extension this off season, and it's an easy story to fix in on and get clicks on and talk about, and then pit fan base, one side of the fan base against the other. So he has done nothing wrong right now. And once again, in a perfect world, would you like to have him in the building right now? Absolutely. But let's not vilify the guy if he's not there.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm sure he's one of many veterans not there today. It's not even OTAs, the voluntary OTAs. And so to me, this is really a non story. Even if he misses the voluntary OTAs, probably won't be much of a story either. Mandatory minicamp will be a different thing, but there's a lot of receivers missing Debo Samuel, A.J. Brown, and others. So this is much ado about nothing to me. I'm watching the Maulers game. Those stands look empty. That was my
Ooh,
first impression. I know it's a weirdly moved, delayed
right.
game, but still not a great sign there. I do want to address some of the questions there about Deontay Johnson in the chat. Then I'll move to the top with Mike Adesso. Tim Chase saying, do you think Johnson could be a problem if no contract? No, I don't think he will be. I think he should have been a good soldier overall. And if he doesn't get a contract, he's going to need to have a really good season to get that contract. And so I think he'll be a hard worker like always.
Look, I mean, the Steelers have enough precedent over the years of how they treat guys like this. It's easy to harken back to the days of some guys that have tried to hold out certain. He doesn't have much of a leg to stand on, really. At this point, it's not like it's a franchise tag year or anything along those lines. I mean, could he technically hold out? I mean, I guess, but he's not going to get anywhere with the Steelers by doing so. He better be prepared to sit out
Yeah.
the entire season if he holds out at all. And obviously once he gets into training camp, anything mandatory, that's where fines come into play and all like that. So I mean, never say never, But if he does, surely I wouldn't think that his agent would advise him to go that route, especially with all the precedent that the Steelers have in situations such as this. I mean, this is a guy that's going into a contract year. It'd be a little bit, as we've seen in the past with players that have been wearing the franchise tag, he needs to get himself in a position where he could potentially wear the franchise tag, and that would mean having a great 2022 season and make the Steelers' decision difficult with him. Now, all that being said, I mean, there's still an outside chance the Steelers could get into training camp and sign him to a deal. And about and I see some people out there writing that he's unhappy with the offer right now. Alex, honestly, answer me this: do you think the Steelers are dealing with any other guys working on long term that might get long term deals at this portion of the offseason? Doesn't Kevin Colbert tell us every year at this time that right now we're focused on free agency and then the draft, and then the other stuff of that rest of that business happens later on in the summer?
Yeah, first answer to your first question is no, they're not working on a contract, and the second answer is yes. That's what Kevin Colbert says. Unless you are in that rare group of obviously a quarterback like Ben, Antonio Brown. If Minka hasn't gotten an offer, I promise you, Deontay Johnson has not gotten an offer yet.
Right. And I mean, it's part for the course for the Steelers. They
Right.
usually don't start talks with non-quarterbacks in these situations until really right around training camp get started and stuff like that. So nobody has any sources on these quote unquote reports that Deontay's unhappy that he got lowballed or something like that. That's a bunch of BS, is what it is.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you as well. So not too worried about any of that stuff right now. Let's see. Yeah, Dill Wit was saying I thought didn't think Deontay was in a contract year already. He is. He'll be. This is the last year of his rookie contract, so he is. In XC6 saying Deontay been working with Route God all off season. He's going to be fine. Yeah, I'm not too worried about Diontae Johnson. That's a really good trainer to work with. By the way, Tampa Bay scored on their opening drive. They lead Pittsburgh 7-0. All right, back up to the questions here from Mike
I,
Adesso.
I, I told you Todd Haley's going to cover this number. That's the part that people missed early on when they couldn't hear me.
Right. There you go. Mike Adesso. Hi, guys. Happy Monday with slow news. Lately, I have an idea for the podcast this week if the Steelers go away from quarterbacks. Seems most likely it'll be one of Sign, Hill, or Booth. Maybe you could have Owen back on or someone from the Depot team to further contextualize those three like you did for the quarterbacks. It really does seem like they'll be the pick. Yeah, I think those conversations will flow naturally between Dave and I over the next couple of days and couple episodes as we really get down to the wire here draft wise. And speaking of which, you can see my latest Steelers mock draft up on the site right now. I'm sure we'll have those guys on at some point. I don't know if it'll be before the draft, but certainly after the draft once the picks are known. Jason Council, hey Dave and Alex, what do you think about a receiver in the first? I know I heard a couple reports about them not being quote all in on a quarterback in the first. Lots of great receivers in this class. Yeah, and that could be one of the reasons why you may wait till day two. Pittsburgh, generally speaking, has gone more of the second and third round receivers with a large amount of success overall, especially in recent years. Only two receivers taken in the first round ever under Kevin Colbert. His first ever pick, Plexico Burrs in 2000, and Santonio Holmes trading up for him in '06. So receiver in the first round is possible. I have a little tough time identifying the name. George Pickens to me makes the most sense, although some people argue that he is not worthy of being taken that high, 20th overall. If a Jameson Williams were to fall, he would fit beyond that. The Ohio State kids not having Tomlin Colbert at the pro day makes it a bit of a tough fit overall. But I think day two is where you're going to see that receiver more likely come in.
Right. Obviously, anything's possible here, but as Alex has said, and we've gone over this. I mean, we've tracked this stuff for years. The fact that the odds of a player being picked that Kevin Colbert was not at that kid's pro day are very, 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 very slim. You have to go back to 2009, I think, to Ziggy Hood as the last time something like that has happened. Now you could build in any excuse that fits your narrative listening to this. And by that, if you're an Ohio State fan, you could probably build in a narrative to make yourself feel better that the Steelers love Ohio State kids and they know enough about them, about being so close to them already as it is. But the fact of the matter is, 2009. I mean, you have a large history here with this team, and Kevin Colbert attending pro days as it relates to first round draft picks. So if the pick were to be a wide receiver, as Alex mentioned, you would think it would come from a school like Georgia or Alabama or Clemson, or one of these top schools. Definitely one of these schools that Kevin Colbert went to the pro day on.
Yeah, and so that's why I'm lower, and just because the depth in that class is so good, makes me think that's where Pittsburgh's going to stay with their value selections in the second, third round. So appreciate you guys being here. If you guys could like the stream, it would help us out quite a bit. And I think there are, no joke, probably more people listening to us right now than watching the Maulers game. I'm
Mm.
looking at the stands, and there might be about 50 people sitting
There's
in this.
there's I just saw Travis Feeney.
Oh, did you? There's
Yeah.
a name for you.
On defense, playing for Todd Haley. Todd Haley's got more former Steelers players, I think, than Pittsburgh does.
I
Does he
think
not?
so. Why did they take Travis Feeney? Why was a lanky, like
Mm.
230-pound, injury-plagued pass rusher supposed to be a good idea in Pittsburgh system after like drafting Lamar Woodley and having James Harrison? Why was that felt like a good
I
idea?
didn't see that coming for
Yeah.
sure back then.
Got a super chat here from our buddy Chupa Thingy 6173. Did you see the tweet from Warren Sapp earlier where a quote anonymous GM said he could see the Steelers mortgaging the house to move up to top five for a quarterback? I actually have not seen that. I don't follow Warren Sapp's timeline, if you can believe it or not. But listen, I don't even know what to do with that. Who knows if that's true or not? Even if it is true, that just seems like a GM saying, "Oh, I could see that happening. I could see a lot of stuff happening in the draft." I think for Pittsburgh, the draft does start at five. Do you potentially try to go crazy and get ahead of Carolina? Do you go to Giants at 7, the Jets at 10, Vikings at 12? All possibilities. So we'll see what happens.
Rumors. We're about within that 2 week mark. I'm surprised some of that crazy medical stuff hasn't started yet.
Good point. It probably will be happening soon. Jay Molnar, hypothetically, if you were to trade Deontay, what kind of compensation would you want? Someone asked me if you get a first round pick, specifically the Packers pick at 28 for Deontay. I think a first round pick for Deontay is going to be tough to do, knowing you have to pay him, 18 to 20 plus $1 million on that contract. I think probably a second round pick and something else for Deontay if I had to take a crack at it. I haven't thought much about it at all in terms of what compensation would be justified, but I would say let's just say a second and a fourth.
As I've said all along, and I bet people are starting to maybe pay a little bit of attention to just to me, and I just merely floated the idea out a couple of weeks ago, and the only way, once again, that I could foresee Deontay being dealt would actually be during the draft, and it would be as some sort of trade up package for the Steelers to move up into the first round. That is the only scenario I could see at this point with the team dealing Deontay. If you get past the draft, then really, to me it doesn't make a lot of sense unless you were to be able to get a future first round draft pick for him at that point. And I don't think a team is ready to give up that kind of capital, future capital for Deontay. And as you mentioned, you would have to turn around and probably get permission to work out an extension with him before even making such a deal. Because why would you want to trade a first round pick for a guy like Deontay and then him holding basically all the power, all the cards, if you will, by saying, I know they have to get me done at some point here, and at an extremely high number, or
Mm,
else I'm not going to sign, and then I'll be an unrestricted free agent. And they gave up a first round draft pick for me.
right.
So you have to look at this thing more than just the Steelers side. You have to look at all sides of these things. So once again, I don't think he gets dealt, but if he were to get dealt, I would expect something like that to happen as part of a move up in the first round.
Right, that's fair. And I know Ross Swisher, you're asking about the pizza thing with the Maulers. I think the headline is the guy got cut for wanting pizza over chicken salad, but the story from the Maulers' point of view is that he was being disrespectful in the way that he asked it, had other issues, and apparently a respect thing. But who the heck knows? And I think they just ran the ball in third and five, so that's a very running back like as your head coach. call to make.
Yeah, former Kirby Wilson, former Steelers running backs coach, right?
Yeah, yeah. So you're running on 3rd and 5, but they did not convert and punted. So there's your update
Mm.
there. Jonathan Mason, have y'all checked out the channel, The Quarterback School, on the YouTube machine? JT O'Sullivan, fantastic multi-game analysis on the draft class and explain scheme and quarterback mechanics during the plays. I have a little bit. I think he's a really smart guy. He was a quarterback, I think, with the 49ers for some time. I haven't watched too much of his videos, but yeah, I think he's a really smart dude who breaks down the game objectively well.
Yeah, I think I've watched a little bit of his stuff over the years as well too. Yeah.
Burden Barzy,
Here's the thing. People say, well, why, do you watch this guy? Do you watch this guy? It's okay to look at other people's opinions on that kind of stuff, but you better be watching the tape yourself and being able to pick up your own things on this to get better at trying to better scout not only quarterbacks but all positions. And look, is it a science? I mean, if JT O'Sullivan had the secret of perfectly scouting quarterbacks, then he'd be doing more than just a YouTube channel at this point.
right,
Now obviously he has the experience of playing a position and knows certain things to look for, especially certain reads on a lot of plays and all. But even knowing that is not a foolproof answer at being able to properly scout these quarterbacks there. And look, I mean, I every year, depending on the position group, and this year ended up being quarterbacks. I try to find everything Greg Cosell records in podcast interviews when talking about classes at certain positions. And once again, this year, the quarterback position. I've heard him do 3 or 4 and sought those interviews out as well too, because I like to hear his opinion on the quarterback class.
yeah. And Cosell's on tonight, 9:30 Eastern time for their NFL matchup draft edition show. Correct?
Is
I
that
believe so.
tonight or tomorrow?
Is it tomorrow? I forget what you said.
I think it's tomorrow.
Tomorrow, okay. So tomorrow you'll hear Cosell and Bowen and Salpal on a time that is not 4 a.m., which is a nice
Right.
change of pace. Super chat here, $2 from DTG108. Thank you so much for the super chat. Would you be happy with Jordan Davis at pick 20? Sure. I don't think he's my first choice if I had to list out like my best case scenario picks, but Davis is a great player that I think does to an extent fill a need. And I think we focus so much on the positional value and those things in the draft, and that's important. It's a component to look at, but I just want good players. If you draft good players in the first round overall in your draft, you'll make it work. Your team will be better off for it. I think Davis is a good player. I don't expect him to be there at 20. You think of where guys like Vita Vey went and who was the other one? Christian Wilkins went. Those guys went even higher than number 20. I think Davis will be a top 10 to 15 type player, though.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, I don't think there's many people that would turn their nose up if that wound up being the pick, but it would probably be a bit surprising. And Mike Tomlin even said as much at the pro day earlier this year that he's going to be thinking that Jordan Davis has long since hugged Roger Goodell by the time the Steelers pick at 20th overall.
Right. I know DTG saying I asked because I know snap count was a concern. That's why I kind of referenced the positional value of it, and I understand that. But listen, give me the good player who's going to play 30, 35 snaps a game over the bust who's going to play 70 snaps. I mean, and only for a short amount of time. So I think it was a long term view about just focusing on acquiring talent. And of course, his run defense, as bad as it was last year, although getting healthier and progressing and developing young guys is going to help, but adding a Jordan Davis certainly won't hurt to a historically bad run defense. Back up to the questions here. Next one comes from Mike asking about a scenario where the Steelers have Ritter in the top 5 quarterback list. Yeah, certainly. If I have him in number 20 in my mock draft, I think they would consider Ritter maybe their second favorite quarterback in his class behind Malik Willis. So whoever I put in that mock draft is probably going to be whoever I believe is their second favorite quarterback in this class. I think Willis will not be there, so I think he's number one. If I Whoever I put in that final edition will be the guy I think, and it's emphasis on think, is their second favorite quarterback.
Look, who knows what teams think about this class? I mean, all the discussions that we've had, not only you and I, but the rest of the depot contributors that we've had on the round table and all like that. I mean, you just jump on Twitter with all a lot of these guys that watch a lot of tape in addition to us outside of the depot. A lot of people are mixed on on this quarterback class. Now, I will say throughout the process, there have been a few of them that have. The more I've watched, the more I've gotten comfortable with them. And two of those, would be Sam Howell and Matt Corral. And one of the biggest issues I've had with Matt Corral after the first, I don't know, two deep dives into tape, was still looking for him to make certain kind of throws. And in a deep third dive into his tape and watching some all 22 that I came across that I hadn't yet watched, I was able to find a couple of those throws. Now, there's still not a lot of those throws, albeit, deep outside the numbers, not on, like double moves or wheel route type situations, and just flat out, standard out routes there. But I have found them. I have found a few of them now. He just, wasn't asked by Lane Kiffin to do a lot of that in that offense for
Hmm.
whatever reason there. But at least I have now satisfied my need to see him make some of those throws. It's just that he hadn't done a lot of them. So I've built more comfortability with guys like Corral and Howell throughout this process, not heapings about, but enough that, satisfied, some earlier thoughts and opinions on them. And now, guys that I really haven't moved much on, period, would be Pickett and Willis, because really kind of the opinions that I formed on both those guys after early tape watching have kind of stuck the more tape that I've watched on them. And a guy that's gone the negative direction for me would obviously be Ritter. Just the more tape, the less comfortable I got with him through this process. So realistically, it could probably be any of the five.
Yeah. No, it definitely could be. I know Corral certainly ran a restrictive offense. If you can believe it, Lane Kiffin, bit of a control freak. If you can, shocking statement there. So, trying to project.
He I'll tell you this though, you watch enough of that tape, man, and you understand why he's a bit of that. I mean, he's got a good mind for
Hmm.
that. And it would be interesting to see if he ever got another shot, and he is so much of a control freak, he probably wouldn't get along in that capacity. But if he would ever get another shot as an offensive coordinator in the NFL there, because I really think he is good at uh seeing stuff. And he's, look, what's a good offensive coordinator do? Right from the get-go, they see how defenses respond to certain formations, personnel groupings, and or route combinations, and all of them combined, and then adjust off of that stuff. And Lane Kiffin's very good at that where he's at right now at the college level, I think.
Yeah, it's been successful. Corral had a really good career, but just it's not about trying to project Corral outside of that more rigid structure, and that makes it a projection. It makes that evaluation a bit murkier, but kind of leads to some of that upside we're talking about with Matt Corral.
He can
Uh,
run an RPO though.
He sure can, and Pittsburgh ran a ton of them last year. $5 super chat from Tim Chase. Thank you so much, Tim. Why not see what Mitch Trubisky can do before replacing him? What if he did great and they have a kid riding the pine for years? That's a good problem to have, Tim. If Mitch Trubisky just kills it and he's just a great franchise quarterback, you deal with the rest later. You'd rather be in that position than where you don't have a quarterback at all. So I understand the thought there, but listen, Trubisky is what he is, brought in as that short-term veteran bridge, and if it all works out with him, like I said, that is a good problem to have.
I mean, look, I don't see which way that comment's going there, because whatever happens in this draft for the Steelers, I mean, it seems like an almost foregone conclusion that that player will sit, and probably be the third quarterback to start the season there.
Right.
And barring, I think Trubisky would have to lose the job during the preseason and training camp to not have the job in week one. And if he does open up the season, as a starting quarterback, which you would hope, you did enough evaluation and you spent enough money that way that you think that he would, then yeah, you're going to give him and should give him every opportunity to potentially be that guy and win you some games. And I think the Steelers will win some games with him at quarterback. I just don't think the long term prognosis for the 2022 season is going to be what everybody wants it to be there. But
Right.
I think they can win with Trubisky if they have a running game, if they have a good defense.
Yeah, that's going to be the model. That'll be the mold and the way that Pittsburgh, really the only path Pittsburgh has to win and compete this year. So Pittsburgh Maulers on 3rd and 8, 12 personnel under center, running the ball.
Mm,
They did not convert. So the Kirby Wilson experience not off to a great start.
mm.
Back to the questions. Here's Zachary Pros, but say Willis, Howell, or Ritter are the pick. What number do they wear on the pros? Each of them are either 7 or number 9.
Oh, I don't
Um,
know.
yeah, whatever
Um,
they wore in high school, maybe. I have no idea, but
I
obviously it
don't
will not
know.
be either of those two numbers.
I
Uh,
haven't even given that any thought.
yeah, last thing on my mind right now. Interesting question, though. Keegan Lynn, is Rudolph Trubisky battle 50-50 or more like 70-30 Trubisky in terms of winning the job, assuming we don't draft a quarterback early? Yeah, I think Trubisky is the front runner right now, probably in those 70-30, 75-25 terms. Even if they draft a quarterback, Trubisky is going to have the best odds to start week one. I know you're more like sit the rookie no matter what. I'm a little less rigid in that, but I still think Trubisky, at least in Pittsburgh under Tomlin, is going to be the clear favorite to start.
Oh no, I mean I think that as well too. Well, I don't
Yeah.
know where you got otherwise.
Well, I was saying in terms of the rookie, like you're more of the mindset like the rookie almost has to sit. Like you really prefer just even in just generally speaking, like rookie sitting, you're number one.
Well, at least for half the season, I would think.
Right.
Now if you got in a situation where you're, I don't know, 2 and I don't know what 8, 2 and 7, something like that, and if you'd like the way that maybe the rookie has been progressing in practices and stuff like that, then yeah, I think you at some point when you deem that you're no longer going to have a legitimate chance at making the playoffs, then yeah, I would try to get that rookie some snaps at that point there. Now on the flip side there, I don't want to David Carr him, right?
Sure.
That kind of situation there on top of it. I want to set him up to succeed as much as he possibly can in the situation that he's in there. And once again, I hate telling people the story, and it's funny how things worked their way, worked out the way they did there. But Kevin Colbert will tell you the story from now until the end of time that the original plan was for Ben Roethlisberger to be the number 3 quarterback his rookie season, and obviously injuries played a role in that not happening, and the rest, as they say, is history there. But the odds of a repeat of something like that happening again are probably slim, and maybe not so much from the injury standpoint, but expecting the kid to come in and kind of having the success that Roethlisberger did his rookie season. Now, let's not forget the Steelers had a hell of a running game and a pretty damn good defense back there
Hmm.
as well too. So if you can convince yourself of those two things uh, uh, this year, then yeah, maybe a rookie could kind of uh, somewhat duplicate what Roethlisberger did, but I wouldn't count on that happening, and I would give Trubisky uh, every chance possible. To be the guy until you get in a situation where once again he's just costing you week in and week out, and you're already out of it,
Sure.
the playoffs at that point.
Sure, I think that's how it's going to go this year. Another quick one from Keegan Lynn is Clemson receiver Justin Ross maybe a possibility mid round. I think he will look great in black and gold. Sure, Pittsburgh was at his pro day. Fritz Jackson worked out Ross, and I found out the nugget in an ESPN article a week or two ago that Pittsburgh's team neurosurgeon did the surgery on Justin Ross with that rare spinal injury that he had. So some teams will certainly be scared off on Ross from the medical aspect. Pittsburgh may not be one of those teams given how close they are to the doctors who performed that surgery.
Or you would think with them not currently, and obviously it could change with a trade or something like that, but them not having a 5th round pick right now, I view him more as a kind of a post 5th round possible selection for the Steelers. There, I would be a bit surprised to see a guy with kind of the medical history that he has being the 4th or 3rd round guy.
Yeah, I know his draft stock is kind of all over the map. Some people still have him as a day two guy, but I think just given the seriousness of that injury, it's hard to see that guy go day two. I think he'll be one of those kind of ballers that's going to be on like, Daniel Jeremiah's top players for like half the draft because the medical is just pushing him way
Mm.
down. Mark Ralston, I hope Steelers draft turns out exactly like your mock draft. I hope so too, Mark. I'll feel smart about that. I don't think it's going to happen, but I appreciate the thought. Shaquille Greg,
It would be a first.
it would be a first. It's like a perfect
You
March
should
Madness
quit.
bracket.
You should
I will
quit
quit.
after that.
I will
Yeah.
quit for sure. So no one should be rooting for me to be right, unless you hate me. in which case you should. Shaquille Gregory, would you be willing to take a flyer on Carson Strong in the third or fourth round instead of taking a quarterback in the first? Dave, would you rather have Strong mid round or a quarterback in the first?
Look, if you don't have confidence to draft one of these guys in the first round this year, if that's where you're at, then just leave it alone. Uh, uh, I, I just can't see what the gain is to get a guy like Carson. So, and look, and as I said on the podcast as well, I'm a huge Carson Strong fan. I'm going to be rooting for him at the NFL level after watching so much of his tape and loving that air raid offense and all like that. But I mean, if you're solely in this draft to get a put what looks to be maybe a career kind of backup there. I just don't see the usefulness in that when you can pull a veteran off the street for a near minimum salary to kind of do the same thing for you. So if you're not going to draft a quarterback with the potential truly in your heart that he can be the franchise guy, which normally means first round, then just save the pick and go somewhere else with it.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm largely with you. And again, it's the medical history, the long term health of Strong in those knees. You saw what happened to Ben when those knees went. Everyone talks about the elbow and the arm and the surgery, but to me, it was the knees that were the bigger physical hurdle in the end of his career. And Strong's knees are already pretty messed up at the start of his NFL career. Missed this comment here. I apologize from Chloe Smith said, Alex, I'm new. How are you? In all caps, I'm doing well. Thank you so much for being here. Hopefully, you're still hanging out with us here for another about 25 minutes. Noxley, who are your favorite non quarterback prospects at 20 that will realistically be there? No Davis or Hamilton.
Mm.
Favorite prospects. The first one that came to mind was Lewis Sine, the strong safety from Georgia. He is a bit Edmonds like, but I think a more ag- aggressive and downhill and harder hitter than what Edmonds was, especially coming out of Virginia Tech. He kind of developed more into that. Obviously he got more experience, but I think Lewis Sine is the first name that comes to mind when you ask that question, Oxley.
Yeah, I mean that's obviously you would think that if this team didn't go safety, I mean didn't go quarterback with their first round, you would think that potentially the move would be to address the safety position with one of the and obviously you can't the listener said you can't include Hamilton into that, but Sign could really be in play when it comes to a pick like that. Which cornerback might fall down to that area, it's hard to say. But I mean, the glaring hole, obviously, with this team right now, as it sits here today, we'll see if that changes before the draft, is the strong safety position. So you would want a guy that, and I see some people, maybe wanting to throw Dax Hill into that equation, and I sort of get it, but I think just basically with what you're probably going to ask Minka to do moving forward, and with kind of what the positional need more so of a box player than anything else. That's why I think Lewis Seen would be the correct answer there over a guy like Dax Hill. But that's I think the obvious thing that probably jumps into at least my head and obviously yours as well, Alex.
Scene, is it scene sign? I don't know how to say
I
it.
Yeah,
Either
I've
one.
heard it said both ways on
All right.
broadcast. So
Tomato, tomato. He's definitely a harder hitter than Hill. He's a little light though. He's like a buck 99, which is surprising given the play style that he plays with. For
hmm.
a strong safety to be at least listed. I think a combine he was a buck 99, which is interesting note there on him. I have a couple of questions from a variety of people on Miles Boykin from Mike and Tim. I think a couple other people had asked that as well. Released or waived by the Ravens today. Just kind of give me a quick walkthrough, Dave, on why Boykin may make his way to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and I wrote that up this afternoon. It's a name that I don't know. Every 6 months, whether I like it or not, Alex and I are talking about him. I think from the day he was drafted. I think it all starts with a pre-draft visit back in what was it, 2019? Is that right?
Yes.
Have we been that many years now? Out of Notre Dame, and I think Kevin Colbert, I believe he went to the Notre Dame Pro Day that year, if I'm not mistaken. And then they brought in Miles Boykin for a pre-draft visit that year. I mocked him, I think, at least once or maybe twice that year to the Steelers. You look at his measurables, and of course, we've moved on from Peace Sparky now. We moved on on into what we call it now, RASI, RAS score, because Peace Park seems to be kind of be a thing of the past now here. But I mean, you look at his measurables, and I even pulled his RAS up from Math Bomb earlier today and stuck it in my Twitter feed there. That's the kind of stuff that Kevin Colbert just that's crack to Kevin Colbert. Pedigree guys that the team has had past interest in, that are athletically gifted, that can be had on the cheap, and you can sign Kevin Colbert up for players like that, and I do think there'll be some interest in him. Now, here's the thing: Miles Boykin's going to be subject to waivers, and a lot of people say, well, what's up with the timing right now?
Hmm.
Well, I'll tell you exactly what the timing is here. The fact is that the Ravens started their offseason program just like the Steelers today. The Ravens have, and there's been a report floating around for the last couple of weeks with this, with the Ravens looking to trade Miles Boykin. And by the way, Miles Boykin qualified for the proven performance escalator in his first 2 years, even though he didn't play much, hardly any last season. There, he had already qualified for that, so that made his fourth year salary go over the 2 million mark. And it got to the point where the Ravens said, "All right, well, we tried to trade him. Do we really want him in that building working out, running the risk of getting hurt, and us being saddled with that $2 million number when odds are probably good that he's not going to make the roster?" So that's why the timing happened today on this Monday. I'm almost fairly positive on that. Now, with that, he will be subject to waivers. And because of that $2 million salary being attached to him right now, the odds are probably pretty decent that he won't get claimed. Uh, so I mean, obviously, any team like the Steelers could, and they could obviously afford it at this point. But I think teams, I won't be surprised if he goes unclaimed on waivers and then essentially be a free agent, and then that's when the Steelers will probably call him up and say, "Look, we got a really good opportunity for you to make the squad here," and obviously Kevin Colbert already having some sort of relationship with him from the pre-draft process there. So it should be a I would not even advise them to claim off waivers because of the $2 million
Hmm.
salary there. But if you could get him for what his minimum would be at this point, which would be obviously a lot less than $2 million, what does it hurt to bring another guy like that into the wide receiver room, which right now could use a wide receiver like him that could stretch the field, have some pedigree, and has a little bit of NFL experience to him. So it's something to watch, I think, in the next kind of 48 hours, I think.
Right. I think it's a great point. I agree wholeheartedly. And he's played some on special teams as well, I believe.
Yes,
Correct.
he has. Yes,
That's
he
important.
has.
So that.
And he's got what, 7 touchdowns on just like what, 30 NFL catches, and a lot of them are down the field. If you go back and look, I mean, I watched a lot of his tape because remember he was a kid that we said at the end we did the study of uh, play wide receivers in the Steelers under coming out of college with under 100 catches, right?
Hmm.
And he was one of those under 100 catch kind of players there. And but that said, uh, well, he doesn't have a lot of catches at the NFL level. I think he's got a couple of drops in there, unfortunately. He still has the speed to separate, and his highlights really look good, as they should because they're highlights. But on the flip side, he does have some negative stuff on the tape there. He is a vicious blocker, though, too. There's good. The Steelers love their wide receivers to block, so that's another positive on him. It would just be, I'm not saying it was a guaranteed hit, but it would be a very, very low risk ad for the Steelers when it comes to Boykin. And that room right now could really use that,
Hmm.
I think.
Yeah, Pittsburgh's gotten to know him well. He scored against Vince Williams in a really poor mismatch. I guess it would have been 2 years
Sure
ago.
did.
So I remember that play in particular from Miles Boykin. Next question comes from Loop the Ridis. There are a lot of so-so inside linebackers and D-line on the team. Is there roster room to add at these positions, or do we wait until next year? It's tougher. It is pretty crowded, but there could potentially be room. What's going to happen with stuff on two? It's an important yet seemingly still outstanding question to answer. You never know what could happen in camp with injuries and whatever circumstances come up there. So I kind of categorize them as more day three options to consider in terms of the position of it all, unless you know that Tuitt's not playing or you're that concerned that you want to aggressively pursue the position. And so a day three guy could end up on your practice squad for a year.
Good answer.
Let's see. Pittman, can the Steelers trust Tua to return? Tuitt's status still unknown. If he returns, I trust him. It just you don't have an answer right now, and that's obviously because we don't believe they have an answer. We don't know of an answer, and that's an issue.
Right. And it's been a mystery. I mean, I don't want to give false hope out there because we just don't know. We haven't known for some time when it comes to him.
Yeah, they've been
So,
optimistic about it, but
right,
there's no answer until there's an answer. Then doesn't really
right,
matter what your
right.
optimism is. Braden Miller, hi Dave and Alex. Thanks for all the hard work you do. Thank you so much, Braden. Appreciate you being here. Our buddy Saloon from Brazil. Hopefully you're still hanging around here. Good evening, Dave and Alex. About Tyrann Matthew, do you guys think that off the field stuff, early career, are playing any part in the Steelers not signing him? I don't know exactly what you're referencing to. Probably just some of the outspokenness, maybe from Matthew. I don't know if that was a thing in his career or not, but I doubt that's the issue. It's probably an issue of money. Money talks, as you know, Dave.
Always follow the money.
Hmm.
Always follow the money. This is a guy that's coming off of a contract. What 13, 14 million with the Chiefs. Uh, as I've, the Steelers, I think to some degree, obviously have had some level of interest in him, as I suspect quite a few other teams have as well here too. But on the flip side, this is a kid that's not a kid anymore, 29, going on 30 here next month. I think in May is when he turns 30. There, he's going to be hard pressed to get uh 10 million or more per season without that the label of up to being included in that. And the Steelers don't like to do contracts with players, non-quarterbacks with incentives. So you might as well get that out of your head right now. They're not going to do a 1 year contract with a guy like Tyrann Mathieu for over anything over the amount of, I don't know, $2.5, $3 million. You're just not going to do that. If I had to guess, the deal that the Steelers have, if they've made any offer to Tyrann Mathieu at all, if it has even gotten that far, I would imagine the deal is somewhere around 2 years, $16 million, basically a carbon copy of the contract that Miles Jack signed several weeks ago. I can almost guarantee you that they're not going to offer a guy like Tyrann Mathieu more than $10 million a year, and definitely nowhere, if they did, nowhere close to being much more over the $10 million mark. So is it totally out of the question at this point? I mean, there's always a possibility while a player's unsigned, right?
Hmm.
And I don't know if maybe a team's got a contract on the table that's just we're wanting to play the waiting game to get out of the compensatory formula period of the offseason, which will be immediately after the draft is over with. There, we obviously saw that happen with Alejandro Villanueva, and I think even a few other guys last offseason. Teams basically had contracts, verbal contracts with guys, and wanted to wait until they did not get docked in the compensatory formula till they actually signed those guys. Maybe Tyrann Matthews holding on to kind of a wink wink nod nod kind of situation, yeah, as it stands. I don't know, but if the Steelers were to sign him, I feel very comfortable in saying that it would be a 2 year deal and under $10 million a season.
Yeah, well said there. We'll wait and see what happens with that. I don't think any potential off-field stuff with Matthew even early in his career is going to play a role right now. Got a good question here from Jason Adams. Says Willis, of course, Malik Willis, the quarterback from Liberty, is considered a boom or bust prospect by most analysts. My question is, if you were a GM or coach, would you feel comfortable potentially putting your job on the line for him? I understand the question and the thought and the risk there, but I would just say that that really applies to any quarterback you take. We talk about risk and safety. Really, none of these guys are safe. Now, some have more risk than others. Some certainly have more boom bust potential. Willis is among that group, but you're putting your job on the line with every move you make, and especially anytime you try to anoint a quarterback as the guy of the future. So I think that really just applies to no matter what you do.
The best way I can answer that question is sort of the way that you've answered it, answered kind of similar questions earlier in the throughout this process, Alex. And that's the fact that when you look at the Steelers specifically, when it comes to Malik Willis, it's the single most ideal situation
Hmm.
for Willis and for the Steelers, to be quite honest with you, because there's not that urgency, let's say, as there might be in, I don't know, Carolina, Detroit, I don't know, where you win in 2 years, or the front office gets changed over, coaching staff and all like that. Uh, a team that invests in Willis this year needs to do so with the idea of, at least, if at all possible, letting him sit out his entire rookie season and then going from there. He's the type of kid that you probably want to bring along very slowly in an attempt to maximize what you perceive to be his highest qualities and his upsides in that. So, uh, who cares about the rest of the league? Let's look at it from the Steelers standpoint. And uh, risking, no, I wouldn't view it as me risking my job, because I would feel comfortable in the fact that if, and obviously Kevin Colbert's retiring, yada, yada. But if he weren't, having, uh, 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 being comfortable enough to know that I have time to, bring this kid in and try to do my best at maximizing his potential and not just throwing him to the
Right.
wolves.
That's a really good point about reframing that from the risk of losing your job to the risk of, what if I don't get a quarterback and I lose my job that way because we don't have a quarterback and we don't win? What if this guy saves my job and gets me a Super Bowl ring? That's the approach that teams who draft quarterbacks take, from the glass half full, not the glass half empty view.
I mean, he obviously could boom or bust. I mean, any quarterback class,
Yeah, any player. There's no
uh,
guarantees.
any player, and it's been incredibly difficult to uh, comparatively look at this class versus previous classes and all like that. I mean, the deeper you get into all of their tape, man, the more you start shriveling up your nose, and that kind of thing there. So I am still the most intrigued about a guy like Malik Willis, to see what he might can be able to become, if indeed he lands with the right team that's able to take him to those next couple of levels in his career. But would I go out and bet my house on it? Absolutely not, because I mean, we've seen quarterbacks that you would have thought had a lot better chance of being uh, boom type players just absolutely fall on their face and be out of the league in 3 years.
Many of which you're watching in the
Hmm.
USFL right now. So that just kind of sums it up. If Malik Willis ends up in Carolina, I will say a prayer for him, because he will not go well for anyone involved in that situation.
Oh, you would think at some point they would be, look, I mean, Sam Darnold right now in front of them, and the fan base, all about, and that's another reason why I could see a team like Atlanta maybe pulling the trigger on him too, because all Atlanta wants to do is get Buzz going to get some season tickets sold, right?
He's a local kid, right?
And
Whatever
he's a
that's worth,
local
from
kid on
Atlanta.
top of it. So you have that draw. I mean, almost kind of a similar thing with what Vic many moons ago, because wasn't Vic, kind of Virginia kid, but close, closer ties to that area and all like that. And look, I was. Down south at the time all that happened. I even went to Vic's first preseason game was actually against the Steelers
Mm.
in Atlanta there. So I actually got to witness that as well too. And the buzz in that first preseason game was just absolutely phenomenal. So you know is it a move more about selling seats, and would they find themselves being patient, and would the Panthers find themselves being patient if it got to a situation where both those teams got off to, I don't know, like a 3-6 or 7 start or something along those lines, with especially in Carolina, where, boy, Matt Rule, if he doesn't get this team over the hump over 500 this year, he's probably gone.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about Ben McAdoo trying to be creative with Malik Willis, and
Mm.
that's just not going to work well. So, a couple more minutes left. Let's get to as many questions as we can. I'll kind of roll things a bit through things a bit quicker here. Jarrell Harris, Alex will be live streaming during the draft day one, not during the draft. Maybe something in the hours before the draft, but not during. Brian Tolini, hey Dave and AK. Round four seems to be the average round, I see a cornerback taken in Steelers mocks. Better chance there was one taken before round 4 or after. Any late round sleepers you really like? I'm not sure on the late round sleepers. Some mid round guys, Marcus Jones from Houston, Tariq Castro Fields from Penn State makes a lot of sense. I had Kobe Bryant from Cincinnati. I mock draft today. I could see that earlier. I could see it a bit later. I think you know it could kind of go either way based on how the board looks.
I tell you that Mathis is out of Pitt has got my attention. I think that's a guy that maybe some people are sleeping on when it comes to the Steelers specifically as a kind of a third or fourth round potential guy there. Let's see. I know a couple of our guys on the depot are high on Kobe Durant out of South Carolina State. I think you said, did you say Martin Emerson is one that checks a lot of boxes when it comes to the Steelers out of Mississippi State?
Everything but Vert missed it by an inch,
Okay.
but kind of a long press corner. Again, the analogy is the poor man Sauce Gardner.
And then obviously the Tennessee kid who I had in my mock, who
Yep.
some people have. Some people wonder if he might be, better suited to be a safety at the NFL level. That's another one to keep an eye on there. I know our own Owen Straley's high on Dallas Flowers out of Pittsburgh in Kansas, East West Shrine Bowl guy there as well. So I think there's a good list of 6 or 7 of them that the Steelers could potentially draw from. And as the listener said, probably some starting somewhere around, I don't know, third, fourth round.
Yeah, that's Alontae Taylor from Tennessee, which I know has been your guy for a little bit now. Bruce Myers, if the Steelers do not sign a safety before the draft, does that put a safety squarely in the conversation for the first round pick? Sure. That's why on my personal short list of like who I think it'll be, it's the 5 quarterbacks plus I added 2 safeties with Lewis Sine from Georgia and Dax Hill from Michigan. So it's your biggest glaring, most immediate need. And so it has to be in that conversation first, second round.
Right. And if the team does not go quarterback for whatever reason in the first round, I mean, the odds-on favorite you would think would be a safety.
Yeah, maybe receiver, maybe D line, but safety to me is that next that second place. Todd says is 15 too much for Deontay? I assume that means 15 million. That's too. That's not enough for Deontay with the way this market is right now. No way.
But I've been trying to tell people all off season. They won't listen to me, Alex. I mean, I think we're at the point now where your starting point, at least on his side of the fence, is probably right around 20 million. And it's been that way ever since Mike Williams signed that contract extension earlier in the offseason, essentially. And obviously, you've had free agency go the course and all like that, and that's just a starting point there. I personally, I think Diontae Johnson would be foolish to take anything less than, I don't know, 18.5, and I think he would feel embarrassed if he did. Now, will he? The question market value is market value, plain and simple. And I'm firm in believing that at the low side, at the absolutely low side, Deontay's market value is 18.5 million, and that's him being kind to the Steelers there. Will it happen? Well, look at the Steelers' history with wide receivers and second contracts there. In fact, I was just recapping the Hines Ward first re-up right before I got on the podcast in 2001. I mean, that was a very, very modest deal. And the difference between him and Antonio Brown, the two guys that have gotten, what would be considered fairly substantial uh, first re-ups with the Steelers during their career. Both of those guys were in unique situations too, because Hines Ward, remember way back before that 2011 CBA, you could sign players not drafted in the first round to just 3-year contracts. Okay. And obviously, that third year, at the end of that third year, is when restricted free agency hits. So the Steelers had some players in some kind of unique situations. And in Hines Ward, specifically in 2001, he had just received a restricted tender at that time. I think it was $512,000. So they kind of had him over a barrel, so to speak. Do you want to play? You want this nice little upgraded contract here? But if you don't, then you're going to have to play for 512,000, and then you have to get to your unrestricted year, and then we always reserve the right to tag you or let you walk. And then in Antonio Brown's situation, you had a situation where he was coming off his second year. You had Mike Wallace turn down, fat deal, after receiving an offer from the Steelers. There, obviously signing with Miami, and Antonio Brown's looking like, man, I could really use an upgraded contract there. And in general, the Steelers got Antonio Brown for a bargain even back then. 42, what was it? 42 million
Hmm.
for what 6 year deal, I think, back then. And Antonio Brown jumped on it. So both of those were kind of really discounted in different situations than the Diontae Johnson deal this year, because obviously Diontae is in a contract year, and next year facing unrestricted free agency if not tagged overall. And history just in general unless there's a change in value, which there could be. We'll see what the next GM thinks.
Hmm.
But historically, you would tend to think that Deontay's not going to get a deal from the Steelers.
Yeah, that is one component. A new GM likely will be working the closest with this contract or potential negotiation, and that could maybe change how things look and how businesses run. Gonna go over a little bit. Gonna go over time here a little bit here because I want to hit on a couple more questions. If that's okay with you, Dave. K.
Sure.
Jackson, Pittsburgh, are the Steelers in position that they can take the best player available? They have obvious needs, but reaching for players has never seemed to work out for us. I know that Kevin Colbert and Mike Tomlin and every team will always say we take the best player available BPA for Pittsburgh. It's really not true BPA. It's where value and need intersect at the highest point. There's always a need and an immediacy component to their draft picks, at least over the last 5 to 7 years, at least. So, short answer is that's going to be the same approach they use this year.
Good answer.
Let's see. Couple more hypothetically. This is from Chupa Thingy. You are a GM. 20 comes up, and you're looking at BPA. Are you looking to trade back and gain capital and still try to get your guy, or are you holding it down to 20? It's a tough answer to give without the specifics about who and what and offers and things like that. For Pittsburgh, I know you're asking me what I would do, but for Pittsburgh, their odds of trading down are just small because Kevin Colbert has always said if they go down at all, they have to like as many players and be comfortable taking as many players as they would be trading down. So to move down 4 spots, they got to like 4 guys who, they're comfortable taking in any of those. Comfortable taking any of those guys at that pick. Otherwise, they will not make that move down. So that's why you rarely see Colbert trade down the first round. Has only happened once back in '01 for 3 spots down. So to your question, though, that's just hard for me to answer so generically.
Right.
Let's see. Let's try to get maybe 2 more questions in here. Let me see if I can find one. This won't count here, but Lauren, where do you think Tyron Matthew ends up? I'm really not sure. Saints. I'll just say he stays at home with the Saints. What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, I don't have a clue. I mean, the Eagles, once again, we don't know if teams are maybe already have something on the table for him, but are just kind of waiting and hoping to get past that compensatory part of the offseason there. So I don't know. For some reason, my gut tells me Philadelphia for some reason, but I really don't know where he's going to end up.
Vegas TJG, who will be the next GM? I hope it's Louis Riddick. We don't know. The finalists won't be interviewed until after the draft. Probably won't know the next GM until I'm guessing about mid-May. Maybe my birthday, maybe my birthday gift will be the next GM of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm still going to go Brandon Hunt, and there's been some chatter about outside guys, and Riddick certainly would make sense, but I'm still going to go Brandon Hunt.
Yeah, that feels like the right way to lean.
See if I can find maybe one more question. We can't get to them all today, but I think we got kind of the most pressing ones there. AJC, what are your thoughts on Troy Polamalu's nephew and Quentin Lake? That's Isaiah Polamau. It's not spelled the same as Troy's last name, so it's
Right.
it's phonetically said a bit different. And then Quentin Lake. I know Polamau didn't
We got
have
a
a.
we got a profile coming up on him in the morning, don't we?
I think it's on Quentin Lake. Maybe, well,
No, we
maybe. Well, on him too? I'm not sure. Okay.
I thought Jonathan has one in the can or
Does
coming
he?
close to on him. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if that'll be for tomorrow. It might be. I'll have to ask him. But soon. And so I know that Tyler's doing Quentin Lake as well. They're both bigger guys. They're not supreme athletes. I know Polamau had a tougher 2021 season with the Trojans, so I don't know their games intimately well. Lake's kind of regarded as a smart, not super athletic guy, but both certainly will be in probably several day three names in Steelers mock drafts.
Right, and Lake, if you got into that seventh round, is a name. If the Steelers haven't addressed the safety position by then, could probably be in play. Smart, a cerebral player, just the athleticism uh, lacks in that area.
Yeah. Let's see. Last one. Looks like it's from Mr. Mark 693. Is there any truth of Baker Mayfield to the Panthers? I have no idea. I think the saying is not my monkey, not my circus. And so I'm going to let Cleveland do whatever they want to do with Baker Mayfield because it's a mess over there.
I'll be your monkey, Alex.
On that note, we want to thank you guys for being here. Enjoy the rest of the Maulers game if you're watching. The Maulers are down 10-0 right now, facing third three. As always, Dave, thanks so much for being here. Next time we'll do a live stream, you and I, we will know who the Steelers draft picks are. So we'll finally have answers to our questions.
Yeah, and tell them one more time about you doing the walk the mock real quick, so they can join you for that.
Yeah, I'll have a video on my channel next couple of days. I'm kind of reminding people, but April 24th, so this Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, I will be the GM of the Pittsburgh Steelers for Walk the Mock, making the pick in the first four rounds for them. You guys can hang out with us and talk about the picks and help me, advise me and be my assistant GMs on who Pittsburgh should pick. So it'll be this Sunday, April 24th, 8 p.m., and I will live stream it on the channel. So thank you guys for being here. Appreciate your time. Please like and subscribe if you have not done so already, and we will talk to you soon.
Peace and love.